Hey, it's Wes Meisner here from the Imaginarium of Wes Meisner, and today I'm going to talk to you about samples. This is one of my samples here from my line, one of my more creative ones. This is another one here. That's a tank. It's like, I don't know if you can see the whole thing, but it says heroin kills on it, anyways. I've been pretty passionate about what's been going on with the fentanyl epidemic. I think it's really impacted the world, and I'm pretty sure Canada and the United States have been really impacted as well. But anyways, the topic of this video is the samples and the management of your samples and the importance of your samples for your commercial line or even just your own work. This is the second portion of like the basics of fashion. I mean, the first one I covered was the patterns. Well, the whole purpose of making good patterns is so you can make good samples. And a really good sample can help you a lot as you develop your business. You're going to need them, one, just to show clients or even just to try them on as references. If you're going to try to create something new, you're going to need them when you want to get stuff made, even if it's a couple things and you just take it to a seamstress. They're always going to want you to provide the sample. They're always going to want you to bring it to every time they have to sew something. So it's just good practice to have good samples and have them organized just like your patterns, and to really keep track of them. I put tags on them. I mean, I have a tag gun, so let me show you. Maybe this one doesn't. The other one has tags on it. I just put tags on it, like the size. I put sample on there so I don't sell it, so I don't lose it. You can see like the kind of tag that I put in there. You can write all kinds of information. You could write like the season or where it's made. That's good to keep it organized, because then you start making lots of samples, it can kind of get lost, or maybe you keep one that was, say, a first sample versus the second sample, which is the better one that you obviously want to keep because you've corrected the pattern and made all the changes, and that's the one that you want to base your production off of. So yeah, once again, like, the samples are very important. Like, I mean, you can't run your fashion business smooth without really good samples. So I'm emphasizing taking care of your samples, organizing your samples, and being very meticulous about managing your samples, in the sense of treat these like they're gold. Like, the patterns you should treat like gold, and the samples you should treat like gold, because you're like, these are the bones, this is the base of your fashion business. I'm telling you, I also like archiving samples so you can get an idea of how your work has progressed over the years, or maybe something was on trend 3, 4, 5 years ago, and you want to re-release it into your line. So I mean, having the pattern and having the sample available to either just release it from the archives like directly, or maybe you want to make a few changes, but you can always reference back to your samples, and kind of, it's so important to keep a log of them, to keep them organized, to do good ones, to not, I mean, I'm guilty of selling samples that I shouldn't have sold to people, and then realizing, oh my God, like, I don't have that sample because I thought it was something I could sell, and then it's like a headache. I gotta recut the sample again and then remake it, and it's just so it's so important with your business to really be on top of your samples. I mean, I'll give you a few tricks and tips on how to maybe cut the cost of creating your samples, because there's different levels of samples. Obviously, there's like first sample, which is just you're kind of just trying to see the pattern and kind of just see if, wow, is the design work, is the fit okay. So maybe with a first sample you don't want to use the best fabric, you want to use something very similar to what the production would be. But if you don't have a lot of money to spend on samples, and you need to see how your pattern is and stuff, then I highly recommend, like, try to find some discounters, try to, some wholesale warehouses that maybe buy, ends of from designers or large companies, or they buy closeouts. Like, if the first sample is not completely production perfect, that's fine, because as long as it's a reference for the sewing and the fit. And if you can bring that to the factory, and it's very similar to what they'll be cut in sewing for your production. Say it's 100 units, say it's 1,000, say it's 10,000 units, then like, they're just gonna be able to have that reference piece along with your pattern. So yeah, to cut the cost on the samples, because they can get pretty expensive, especially if you don't, it doesn't work out the first one, then it could just be kind of like a throwaway, and then you have to like basically cut another sample and pay for the labor. Or if you're going to sew it yourself, then obviously you're not paying for the labor, but you're investing the time. So yeah, discounters are good. You can also, like, there's designers that sell in lots of fabric for, like, at the end of their season for a better price. I mean, I try to, with samples, unless it's something very specific, I try to avoid, going full rip retail, like, because, I mean, paying $12.99 or whatever. I mean, it's just been going up here in Toronto. Like, when you go to the retail store, like, they can have some real garbage, like stuff that I've seen on closeout for like a couple dollars, that they're trying to sell at full retail for $8.99, $12.99. Add tax on that if you're here in Canada and you're paying like $15 a yard, and you need, to make a t-shirt, you need a couple yards. So I mean, that's $30, and then add your labor in, and it's can get kind of ridiculous. So really try to lower your costs, especially with the samples, by finding discount yardage, or kind of going to the closeouts. Or, I mean, you can buy, some companies offer seconds on like yardage, like it's not perfect yardage, but they'll like discount it, and you can always cut around it. I mean, you got to get resourceful with cutting the cost of the samples, because it can get ridiculous, and I don't think it's necessary to use really high end fabric for a reference sample. I mean, if it's a sample you're gonna show clients and buyers and stuff, that, I mean, that would be more like like a second sample, or a production ready sample, or like a sales sample, then maybe you want to invest more in getting it really polished. But I mean, to see what you need from it, you don't have to go crazy with buying the highest end fabric and stuff like that. You're also, I mean, if you can cut the sample, and bring it to someone, like, say you're gonna hire someone to sew samples for you, if you can cut it, I mean, that's gonna trim down your costs a lot, and that's also gonna speed up the time that it's gonna take to get your sample back. So because the seamstresses, or the factories, they love when stuff's cut, because they just need to sew it. Like, they don't have to spend their time cutting it, and cutting is pretty labor intensive as well. So if you can get good at cutting, you can definitely, like, cut some cost out of there, and some time. And you can also kind of control the sample a bit more, in the sense of, like, well, I cut it, and if, like, I cut the sample, I know it was good, I know, like, I really took the time. So you can, maybe they don't care so much about samples at the factory that you work at, and they just kind of cut as quick as they can, and they just want to get it done because like they want to work on production and stuff. So samples for them are kind of, they have to do them, but I know a lot of factories are kind of like, oh, it's a pain in the like they think sampling is a pain in the ass, but obviously it's a part of the business because they need to be able to cost your production and also kind of see if they're if it's doable for them, or like that you're cool with the labor cost if they're gonna cut and sew it. So I mean, and also the other thing too with samples is like I would cut two, like, or more if you can, because then you can keep one reference in your studio and that'll never leave, and then one you can send to the factory. And sometimes they get lost or sometimes they get damaged, or like it's better to have more for production than less samples, because like what if it does get lost? I mean, I've been on the streetcar in Toronto with samples that I was coming back from the factory, and I had it in a plastic bag sitting beside me, and all of a sudden I jump off the streetcar in a hurry, and I forget my samples, and I lost them. So I had to recut them and go back to the factory, and that was a real pain. And I was just like, oh man, not my day. Like, why did I do that? That's so stupid. But you live and you learn. So, um, if you have any questions about samples, please email me. My Instagram is below. If you found some value here, you can donate to my work, or I mean, I have product for sale as well. You can check out those links below. Please subscribe. I'm going to be offering a lot more videos on basics of fashion, my opinion about fashion, just talking about fashion and my career, and sharing some stuff with you, and um, make awesome samples, make really cool stuff, try your best to do like really creative. I want to see lots of really creative stuff. Don't spend too much. Try to save as much as you can by being resourceful and smart when you're making your samples. There's plenty of options, discounters, and I mean, even another one is Kijiji or Craigslist. There's designers that are selling off old fabric, or people that have found fabric at garage sales, or like there's so many places you can look to get fabric cheap. It's one of the bigger expenses with samples, so try to really find a way to cut those costs down, but still get what you need, like still be able to see your like how your pattern was, and make sure your fit's good, and just be resourceful. And we'll talk to you soon, and thanks very much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.